a sprained muscle. How
Yeah.
would you describe what is a sprain?
So the way you got to think of it, there's a strain and then there's a sprain. So
Okay.
a strain is in regards to a muscle. So there's three grades to a strain, and there's also three grades to a sprain. A sprain is in regards to a ligament. A ligament attaches two bones together. A tendon attaches a muscle to a bone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you strain a muscle, that means you've torn the muscle. A grade 1 is a very minor tear. Grade 2 is like a moderate tear. Grade 3 is a full tear.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the sprain. A grade 1 sprain is you have a little bit of a tear. Grade 2 is you have like it's 50% torn. Grade 3 is it's completely torn. Like it no longer exists.
Wow.
So if you heard if somebody says I have a grade 3 sprain or strain, it's a big deal. If they have a grade 1, it's like, oh, I sprained my ankle. It's not too bad. And that's what they would grade you on, like an MRI if you had an MRI done.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So an MRI would be able to see the strain or
an MRI looks at soft tissue.
Uh-huh.
It can see a bone fracture too, but it tends to look at like the soft tissue. It can see where there's inflammation. It can look at like a muscle, a tendon, a nerve, or an organ. An X-ray looks at bones. Typically, you can still see soft tissue on an X-ray. But again, it tends to look more at like, calcium and bones.
Are there a lot of sprains in fitness?
Absolutely. You probably see them all the time.
I do. I see them in the most awkward things. Sometimes it's not during the workout. It's like after the workout.
Well, most of my patients, when I see them, like I say, when I do an assessment, I'm like, okay, so, they usually tell me, oh yeah, 3 weeks ago, I hurt my back. I was doing this or whatever. And they don't really tell me what they were doing. They're like, yeah, it hurts here. And I'm like, okay, so what were you doing? And they're like, oh, and these are young guys too. They're not just old people.
Yeah.
It's, I went to go pick up a box and then I strained my back.
Right.
And I'm like, or they stepped off a curb.
Yeah.
Or they tripped up, those little things in the parking lot. Those things.
Yeah, those little curbs.
Those little concrete things that keep you from going over too far forward.
Oh yeah.
Little concrete. They usually like, oh yeah, well it's not the curb. It's that little blocker thing. That keeps your tire from going.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
I don't know. Does anybody know what that's called?
I do.
Okay.
But not right now.
Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter. But anyway, they're usually like, oh yeah, I stepped on that thing and I sprained my ankle. It's never like I was jumping out of a burning building.
Yeah, absolutely. So then in a person's day, so in your, or I don't want to say opinion, maybe you just know, like, is it a focus thing? Like you're exercising, so you're a little bit more aware of what your movement is,
right? Versus
on the outside, I'm just walking around all willy nilly and, I trip on everything.
Well, like you're never going to prevent every injury. You can't prevent like if we're walking down the street, you and I, and we slip on some water, that's one thing. But if you and I are walking down the street and some guy comes out of his car and just decides to shove you and you weren't expecting it, you're not really going to be able to stop that. But I think a lot of it is if you train your body, and I do this a lot with older people. I've seen people in their 90s. There's one guy, he's no longer with us, but I used to take him to the basketball court, and he was 95, and I would make him shoot baskets. And it wasn't because I wanted him to be an NBA player. Right. It was because I wanted him to focus on his balance while being distracted. And that's probably the number one thing is, you see these old people, they're walking around looking at their feet all day. It's because they don't trust their feet. It's going back to that proprioception, what I was talking about. They don't trust where their feet are because they can't really sense where their feet are. Either it's neuropathy or the system's just not as good because they're older. But if you train people to do things while distracted, they're more likely to have better balance reactions. So that was my goal with training this person was, one, it's fun because, he's 95. The last time he shot a basketball, he was probably 30. And that was like in 1940.
Right.
You know
okay.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then secondly, it's like I'm throwing him the basketball. I'm forcing him to shoot the basketball, but I'm not telling him, hey, you need to watch your balance. He's just doing it.
Right.
But it's in a controlled manner because there's somebody standing there with him in case he loses his balance. But, that's an extreme example. But again, it's a lot of this stuff is just training your body to be ready for the unexpected. And, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
That's right. Stay ready there, rebels. You never know.